Well, our much maligned former Prime Minister Liz Truss really did break cover today with the launch of her Growth Commission. Let's have a little look at one or two of the things she had to say.
What we've seen for decades is low economic growth, and what that means is people are worse off than they need to be. Today's report shows that they are £10,000 worth off in terms of spending power than people in the United States. And it's, of course, vital that families are able to keep more of their own money, they're able to earn more money to help deal with the inevitable difficulties in life, whether it's inflation, whether it's needing to buy a new car. Having that extra growth is vitally important. So what this commission is looking at is what are the policies needed to get.
Well, that was Liz Truss talking to GB News' own economics editor, Liam Halligan. And Liam actually chaired the whole event today with a rather stellar panel. And he joins me now. This, Liam, this morning was a coming together, I think, of what we call Tory free marketeers.
That's right. Liz Truss has been much maligned. Her mini-budget with Truss-Kwarteng last September, as you'll remember, led to a big spike in borrowing costs, what we call gilt yields, what the government has to pay investors to lend the government money last September in response to her efforts to not raise taxes, to maybe spend a little bit less, and so on. But the reality is, Nigel, even though we've had sensible people in charge since then...
The grown-ups.
The grown-ups, Rishi Sunak,
yes.
Jeremy Hunt...
Yes. And where are interest rates now?
Government borrowing costs are now significantly higher than they were at the height of the Truss-Kwarteng mini-budget panic. And I think that reality has given her a little bit of licence, a little bit of permission to speak out again. And she has convened this group of a dozen or so economists from across the world, not just Brits, but Americans, Indian economists, Japanese economists. I've met most of them in my travels, and I met a lot of them today because I chaired the press conference today. I'm not a member of the Commission as a journalist, but I did chair the press conference today. And I think in some senses she's got points to make. And there were other former cabinet ministers there, Lord Frost, Priti Patel, Ranil Jayawardena. And Ranil Jayawardena really seems to be Liz Truss's consigliere, if you like, in Parliament. And he told me he's got a group of 50 or 60 Tory backbenchers who agree with what Liz Truss is saying. Let's have low tax, let's have pro-enterprise, supply-side policies, let's try and grow the pie rather than argue about the size of the pie as it currently is.
You see, it's quite funny you say those things because, I would have thought myself for the last 40 years, naturally, these were things that a so-called Conservative Party would believe in, would put in manifestos, would attempt to implement in government. And it looks to me, it seems to me, maybe I'm being unfair, we've had 13 years of the state getting bigger, taxes going up, the self-employed, the sole traders feeling they're being crushed, the corporates taking control. Is Liz Truss's group going to change anything?
The tax take is at a 70-year high, Nigel, taxed as a share of GDP. And a lot of Conservatives you speak to, they seem to think that the answer to all problems that the state may have is to borrow and spend more money.
More state.
Yeah, that is just unsustainable. The government is now spending more to borrow than Greece, than Italy. I mean, it's an inflation issue rather than what we call a credit issue. People don't think the Bank of England can't, underpin the British economy. They don't think the British state is going to go bankrupt, but they see we've got high inflation. Inflation, which I actually think will come down quite soon, but that's another discussion. But she is trying to bolster that kind of centre-right of the traditional Tories, which has been sorely lacking.
There's little prospect of Jeremy Hunt or Rishi Sunak listening. Is a final thought on this. Was today the beginning of a campaign to turn the Conservative Party around in opposition?
Well, certainly Rishi Sunak won't have been happy that this happened, a kind of circus on the edge of Westminster. Clearly the Growth Commission will be at the Conservative Party conference this October. Clearly it's going to be banging the drum. There are too many serious people involved among those commissioners for this to be a damp squib. There are too many big economic names involved that are now likely to become household names.